Okay, so today in this video, I want to talk about perhaps one of the most important topics that not many people dive deep into, like I'm going to. And when we really begin understanding how this works, I think our life becomes more uplifting, enjoyable, and at ease. And the topic is on inspiration. So I want to go a little by one, dissecting what it means and how this interferes in everybody's life. So inspiration to me means to be in the energy of spirit. So being in spirit. So when we understand that the fundamental essence of who we are is in the spiritual dimension. So who we are is not the body, not the mind, but the awareness and the soul spirit dimension that is invisible and is formless. What gives us is this feeling of expansion. And let's say when you're truly feeling inspired, you can describe that feeling from many different angles. But then expansion and the sense of upliftingness is something that many people feel and experience, right? What's the difference? What's the opposite of expansion? It's a contraction, which consists of resistance, which comes from fear. So the inspiration, the energy, and the state of being in spirit is this sort of infinite expansion and the sense of life that you experience. It's almost like a blissful state, right? And it's very interesting because you can look at inspiration as an emotion, right? When you are inspired by something, you feel the natural drive that you don't need to try to do anything, but you feel led by something effortlessly, right? You know, I really want to come across the difference between inspiration and motivation, which I have never been a fan of motivation. I always say that if you're feeling inspired by something, you don't need any motivation. And if you feel like you need to be motivated, that's because 100% of the time you're not being inspired by it, right? So something much, much bigger than ourself, the stories in the mind, the self, the concept of self, is guiding you, is pulling you, is leading you. That is inspiration. So, and I love that feeling, right? Like when let's say when we are talking about, being an artist or creating something, not many artists or creators in, even like an innovation comes from this sort of like a struggling, trying energy, right? Struggling, trying energy that is heavy is opposite of lightness, expansion, and ease. And inspiration seems to be coming from out of nowhere, and the light bulb, you know, turns on inside of us. So what is that, right? And then how do we stay inspired? Because let's say when we talk about the universal law of attraction and conscious manifestation or personal creation, there are different ways to describe that, is an idea that you are the creator of your own circumstance that you're inviting, and your inside energetics is going to be the cause of the outside effect that you draw in. And when we begin believing in that analogy and that reality that we are living, this idea that your belief is the fundamental aspect of what we are creating, painting in this physical realm. We all want to be feeling inspired by something all the time because there's sense of effortlessness, sense of ease, sense of that is who we are. That's why it feels good. So it's really important to find this place of feeling good. However, to not to misunderstand that absence of feeling good that might be coming from the sense of unworthiness. Okay, let's talk about that because this is really important. I witness very often in this so like more of the yin energy, the feminine energy of the manifestation process, where people think that it's not ready yet, right? So people tend to depend on something outside of them to create something and put the responsibility to outside of your free will choice. And a part of that is correct, right? Because we want to let go to unfold something, but then we also need this sort of like a masculine direct energy of making a decision, taking a immediate action. Inspired action is much, much better than forced action. But then there's a part of our own free will responsibility that needs to be a part of the equation to be able to unfold every single circumstance. Now, inspire action is so powerful because you're in an expansive state, you're in a uplifting state, and that energy is lined up with the source, right? So our biological body is starting to feel that expansion, and you are bringing that quality and the essence of who we are in this biological body. That's when you are feeling inspired, right? So feeling of inspiration is when you embody the energy of the source. That is what inspiration is. And when you are not inspired by something, you instead of having that intention of tapping into that source energy, you are wanting to feel differently, and then you start seeking motivation. Yeah, motivation implies that you need to push yourself. Inspiration implies that you're being pulled by something greater. Yeah. So the question that many people might have is, how do I tap into that inspiration when I'm not feeling like doing anything? Yeah, there are a couple of different answers. Now, one answer is to actually begin moving into action, even though you might not be feeling like it, and then to begin creating and formulating and marinating that energy of inspiration. Because what happens often is that when you move into action, you might be able to create different channels inside of you to tap into that, right? So that's actually a little bit different from forced action, because your intention behind that action is to be inspired by something. And when you begin taking action and being in that moment of acting on something, you now tap into that inspiration. So the fundamental intention behind that action, even though you started by not feeling like it, you start shifting into feeling like it, and you might start feeling inspired by feeling the body lighter and expansive and uplifted. Yeah. Another way is to actually begin moving the body, right? Now, moving the body in a way that is mindful, moving the body in a way that you can feel moving that energy, because often the absence of movement of that energy in our inside, in our surrounding, in a subtle dimension, can gives us a sense of stagnant, right? So you begin moving the body to be able to change and shift the state of the being. A lot of people use music, right? Uh, Also, though, something that you might not be expecting how to be inspired by it is to actually organize your room or your car or anything that you feel like it's a little clutter. And I cannot actually stress enough how important this is, because I know we're talking about, changing the inside energetics, but then if you're surrounded by some environment that you're feeling not energy moving, even like opening the window and let the air flow through. All those things are really important, right? And something that I think I want to create a separate video for this, but just to kind of touch upon a little bit, I'm a big fan of ritualization, right? So ritualizing, you don't need to be, putting the incense and begin singing and begin sort of dancing around the fire. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, I mean, that's a fantastic ritualization that a lot of ancient civilization honor. But the ritualization can be to set an intention of entering into something by creating an environment. And I think I got this from a Japanese culture, because we have different like practices, right? We call these practices. Like maybe you have heard of this martial arts called judo, right? Judo or kendo or aikido, right? Do means path. Yeah. And then we also have, like, when I was in school in Japan, we also had something called a class called shodo. Shodo means write, and it's a path of writing, but you use an ink and a brush to be able to write in a certain way. But then how you write it and the energy in which you engage when you're writing is the practice, right? In Japan, we also have something called kado, which is flower ceremony, or sado, which is tea ceremony. And then you put the flower together, and then with an intention, right? And then we put some tea together with intention. But that activity is just a vehicle so that you can enter into this energy of the body, right? Like when you go to a dojo, which is a space that you do the martial arts, dojo is a space for the path. That's what it means, right? Like we kind of have this tendency of, or culture or practice of bowing to enter because it's a sacred space. And when you leave, you bow because it's sacred space. So that attitude and energy creates the intention and the energy of the space. Yeah. So coming back to inspiration, if you're not feeling inspired and wants to change, number one, you either do the things temporarily to begin shifting the energy into an inspiration from stagnant to flow, or number two, begin moving the body to change the energetic emotional state in the body, number two. And number three, this is my favorite actually, to begin organizing things that you feel it's a little cluttered, because then you are creating the space around you for the energy to flow through. And that actually might be the reason that you are not feeling inspired, if that is the case. And it's interesting, if something is not organized, that actually is a reflection of how the mind has been operating. And you might not be attentive to those stuff, right? And you might be doing something back to back to back to back to back, and you didn't have a chance to take care of that. But then if we can live the day and live the week from the perspective of moving energy in an effortless way, and whenever you notice any stagnant energy, to take care of that, to move the energy, you will always feel inspired because that is who you are. So the feeling of inspiration that you get inspired by, to be able to feel excited about, to do something, is who you are. It's not a state that you need to achieve, but it is a place and home that we come back to. And then we can come back to that home by moving energy around you so it circulates and stays in the flow state instead of stagnant state. Yeah. So let me know if you have any question, and if you have any other ways that you know how you can initiate that state of access that state of inspiration. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.